The Holy Gospel according to St. John, the first chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testified concerning him. He cried out, saying, "This is the one I spoke about when I said, 'He who comes after me has surpassed me, because he was before me.' Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." No one has ever seen God. But God, the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in closest relationship with the Father, has made him known. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. My dear brothers and sisters, once again, Merry Christmas to you all. It's wonderful to have so many of you braving the roads and joining us here at St. Thomas and worshiping with us. And the same was true last night. It wasn't a big crowd, not like you normally see on Christmas Eve, because, man alive, with the wind blowing the way it was and the drifting such as it was, frankly, I was surprised anyone came at all. We'd have still been here, probably singing to ourselves with the junior choir. But still, we had people here, and we were worshiping the Lord and singing. And one of the songs, which I was struck by last night, related to what I wanted to speak about today, and so it really stuck with me, and that was the song, "What Child Is This?" You guys know that one. I just read from the prologue of the Gospel of John. I can hardly think of a more appropriate question after reading those inspiring and overwhelming words. What child is this? First of all, as I just read, he's God, of course. You've got verses 1 through 3 in your bulletin say, "In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made." So you look at that child and you think about what we discussed in our third midweek message. That child is a stamp of God in flesh. I actually had my embosser that my parents gave me as a graduation gift from college. They figured I was going to have lots of books, so they gave me one of those things. You stick it on the first page of the book, and then you squeeze tight, and it creates that impression in the page. It says, "From the library of Aaron Fry." The Greek word that's in the reading from Hebrews that I can, picture in my mind as I read those first 3 verses of the text say, "This child is pressing God into human flesh," and this is what comes out. Like you press that metal thing into the paper, and what comes out is, this is the library of Aaron C. Fry. You do that with human flesh, using God as the pressing machine. That's the child. That's the child. Interesting stuff. But John says even more. Verse 4a says, this is the one who is life for us. In him was life. Just like Jesus said, right? When you ask what child is this, you can use Jesus' own words. I am the way and the truth and the life. Which makes perfect sense given that this child was born in answer to all those prophecies that God started when Adam and Eve first fell into sin. When they first disobeyed the command about which God said, the day you eat of that fruit, you will surely die. The problem that this child is intended to solve is the problem of their death. So it only makes sense that when you ask what child is this, you can look at it and say, this child is the life. Yeah, that's a fascinating answer. Kind of more of an Easter answer though, right? I mean, it works, but Jesus came into flesh, he lived in our place, and then died our death, rising from it on Easter morning. So I'll say this is the life for Easter. John says still more, something a little more Christmassy. He says that he is the light of all mankind. Again, if you look back in your bulletin, I only read the first half of verse 4. The rest of verse 4 says, that light was the light of all mankind. And then verse 5 says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And that actually is the mystery I'd like to dig into for Christmas. Not so much what child is this, but what light is this? There are a lot of things you can say about Jesus. I'm thinking we might well have sung among our stanzas of what child is this, what light. Because the light is mysterious. And I mean, light itself, but we still look at light and we're like, wow, we're still scratching our heads, right? Light, they tell us, is the possessor of the speed limit of the universe. It's a wave maybe, it's a particle maybe, it's kind of both. What is it? We still don't understand. How is it that that's the speed limit of the universe? And then they tell you all kinds of crazy things about light, like when you're traveling near the speed of light and you shine a light, well, as it goes away from you, it looks like it's going at the speed of light. And yet if somebody is watching you from the front, it looks shifted. It looks like it's going faster. If you're behind, it looks like it's going slower. It all depends on where you're standing. And you read stuff like that, and you're like, what on earth is this thing? I don't understand. I know they didn't know exactly what light was when Jesus was born, and I know John wasn't written to address such crazy mysteries, but I do want to point out this about what John said. He says in verse 5, the darkness has not overcome it, and you may have heard this if you were in the Bible class that we were going through last year and we came upon this verse. I said, that's an interesting word, where it says in Greek, the darkness has not overcome it. They use a word that means grasp. So when the NIV translates the darkness has not overcome it, or the old NIV says the darkness has not understood it, they're taking a figurative translation. They're using a figurative translation, which is fair. That's sometimes the way it's used, because we say that too, right? When we don't understand something, we say we can't grasp it. They use the idea of wrestling to explain what it means to really get a concept. So it's also defeating something in victory, when you grasp it, when you master it. All those things go into this mysterious concept of this child being the light. How are you supposed to understand that? You can't understand light itself. It's mind-numbing to consider the fact that when you press God into human flesh, you get this child. But then to say that this child is light, what is that supposed to mean? That's what I want to dig into. That's what I'd like to walk away from this message with this morning. I want you to be able to use that throughout Christmas. I want you to be able to think about that as you see lights on a tree, as you see the various lights and decorations around town and elsewhere. I want you to be able to think, Jesus is the light, and here are a few reasons why that's true, even though I may not fully grasp it. Okay, so here are a few reasons. And by the way, you can just keep pulling John 1 out and see these things. I'm going to go right down the line. John really does answer the question, what light is this? He explains it. What does he mean by this is the light? He knows it's kind of a mysterious statement, so he goes through it, point by point by point. So like if you go back to verse 5, and after it says the darkness is not overcoming, continue on, he says, there was a man sent from God, another John, whose name was John, right? John the Baptizer. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He's helping to explain what it means that this child is the light. So John the Baptizer came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light, he came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. There's a lot in there to explain why Jesus will call himself the light, why we should look on that child as the light. First and foremost, he says this is about trust, right? He came as a witness to testify concerning this light, that all might believe. And I've said it many times before, whenever you see believe in the Bible, you should think trust. Because we tend to think a bunch of facts, I either think they're true or not. Sort of, kind of. It's got a lot more to do with what do you trust? Because trust changes how you act, right? John the Baptizer comes to talk about this light. And he wants to talk about the light in such a way that we are drawn to trust. He acts as like a witness in court to say, here's what happened. You may not understand entirely, but I was there. I have this truth. I'm going to share it with you so that you can make a proper judgment. And what's the judgment? He explains that as well. This is a true light. That's further down when he says that the true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He uses a Greek word that means like genuine. This is reliable, valid. Right? It's all got to do with trust, right? In the end. All with trust, because we are full of ignorance by nature. We need sources of light. We need enlightenment about the world around us. But who are you going to listen to? It's a bigger question now than it's ever been, I feel like, because there are so many people willing to just purvey some truth that works for their understanding, and you're left to think, well, what is the real truth? Well, Jesus is that truth. That's what it means that he is the light. He pierces the darkness of ignorance, and what he reveals is the real deal, so that you can trust the light. It's all about the trust, John the Baptizer is saying. Then the original John adds, verses 10 to 13, he was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. So there's an idea of the natural ignorance that is ours, but he goes a little bit further on that. That ignorance goes to such a level that when we're faced with the ultimate truth, with the source of reality, with God, we come away with different stories. This light is necessary for us because we need something to trust, some truth to trust, because the whole world differs on truth. This light will be received by some, he says, and not received by others, because we differ on that truth. But this light has a power to differentiate itself from other forms of light by changing those it shines on, so they understand they are children of God. And now that we have received him, verse 14 continues, we act as witnesses too. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So we have seen this glory now. We can act as witnesses now. So you got light, you've got truth, you've got trust, you got all that. And still I ask, what light is this and what are we supposed to learn from that? And that's where John wraps it all up. So join me at the bottom of page 7 in your bulletin. His conclusion begins with verse 15. John testified concerning him. He cried out saying, "This is the one I spoke about when I said, 'He who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me.' Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given," or as I'll say here over and over again, grace upon grace, grace on top of grace. And I hate to say it, it's just one of those Greek things. There's a preposition there that can mean on top of or in place of. Like, you've got this and then you replace it with something else by setting it on top. They use the same preposition for both ideas. Okay, so we got grace, and then on top of that, replacing that, grace. Grace over grace over grace over grace over grace. Gifts from God over and over and over again. So out of his fullness we've all received grace on top of grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in closest relationship with the Father. He has made the Father known to us. That is how he finishes off this prologue before launching into the ministry of John the Baptist, with the idea of gift upon gift upon gift, which is to say, what light is this? True light. Light so true that not only does it break through ignorance, things that you don't know, and show you things that you do know, it's so true, it's so powerful, it's divine itself to the extent that whenever it shines, it shows you something even more. Grace upon grace, or to use a more Christmassy word that still is a great translation of the same Greek word, gift upon gift upon gift upon gift upon gift. Every time that light shines, John says, this is what you need to know about it. This is what you should take away from it for Christmas. You're getting more truth. Greater gifts. Gift over gift over gift over gift. In other words, don't let this be your only encounter. 2023 is going to give us a lot of opportunities. We're already watching The Chosen. You keep watching The Chosen with us. You can start in season 3 if you want. That's fine. You can watch season 1 and season 2 at home if you like and catch up. Or you can just not. Just start in season 3 with us. Keep watching. We're going to, of course, read through the entire Bible in 2023. More and more and more light. This is what you take away from Christmas today. There's always something more to see. Take the opportunity to discuss it amongst yourselves, like the dig-ins that Heidi and I are trying to get going, trying to get that stuck in your head so that you take opportunities to sit down and talk about the word. There's always more there. Gift upon gift upon gift, because that's the kind of light this is. What kind of light? The light that keeps showing more. In fact, if you find that you're not seeing more, something I think is wrong. Right? Because this isn't just the light of a religion. It goes past that. It's a light, as John made clear in the rest of the prologue, that establishes trust, or to put it another way, a light that creates relationship with God. Relationship. Not just knowledge. Relationship with the core of reality. So what light is this? Well, it's God, he says in verses 1 and 3. Verse 4a, he says he's in him is life. And 4b and onward, he says that light is reliable. It's revealing more and more truth. There's, in this section, gift upon gift upon gift. It's well past religion, because it's not about the law of Moses. It's about this truth that comes through Jesus alone. And it's a truth that establishes relationship. All these things are true. And you're going to taste it for yourself this morning. Right? A light that establishes trust, a light that establishes truth, and yet doesn't drive you away from God, who demands perfection from us but supplies forgiveness. You'll taste forgiveness this morning. That's part of the light. But like he said, it doesn't end there. You take this light from Christmas. This child is light such that once you start to see it, you have inherently the ability to do what John the Baptizer did, what John the Apostle did. You have the ability to share that. And I recommend not only that you share it with others, continue the discussion, that you continue to share the light with yourself, that you keep building gift upon gift upon gift, keep increasing that understanding. There's so much joy in that. And ultimately, you'll understand this more and more. The Bible is a book, sure, but it's more than that. Just like Jesus is more than a child. Just like the information that you receive from the light that he gives is more than just information. What Christmas is about is more than just a story. It's a continuing story that continues to establish your relationship with the Father, continues to create in you more a feeling that I am a child of God, that he is willing to live among us, not just because we needed a Savior, which we did, and he supplied it. He's got that perfect life that he gives for us, and there's the verdict of not guilty that comes with his resurrection from the dead. All that is true, but look at that child and realize something. It's all about getting close to us. God, who is everywhere, had another way to demonstrate, a reality to show. When he pressed in human flesh what is the nature of God, a child was born who would live just like us, who would live among us. Emmanuel, God with us, in the crowd with us. That's the love. That's the light. It's all about trust, and therefore it's all about relationship. That's the gift upon a gift, upon a gift, upon a gift. And it's going to keep on giving for all eternity. Amen. Please stand. Join with me now in our next hymn, Good Christian Friends Rejoice. It's hymn number 55.